Saturn V was an American, human-rated, super heavy lift launch vehicle, used by NASA, between 1967 and 1973. It's a three-stage, liquid-fueled rocket, which was developed, under the Apollo program, to land humans, on the surface of the Moon, and was later, used to launch Skylab, USA's first, space station. It's the only rocket, to carry humans, beyond low Earth orbit. It's the tallest, heaviest, and most powerful rocket, ever brought to operational status. It holds record, for the heaviest payload launched, and largest payload capacity, to lower Earth orbit, 140,000 kilograms. It was the largest production model, of the Saturn family of rockets. The Saturn family, of American rockets, was developed by a team, of mostly German rocket scientists, led by Wernher von Braun, to launch heavy payloads, to Earth orbit, and beyond. The Saturn family, used liquid hydrogen, as fuel, in the upper stages. Originally proposed, as a military satellite launcher, they were adopted, as the launch vehicles, for the Apollo Moon program. 3 versions, were built and flown, the medium-lift Saturn I, the heavy-lift Saturn 1B, and the super-heavy-lift Saturn V. The Saturn V was designed, under the direction of, Wernher von Braun, at the Marshall Space Flight Center, in Huntsville, Alabama. The lead contractors were, Boeing, North American Aviation, Douglas Aircraft Company, and IBM. A total of 15, flight-capable vehicles, were built, plus 3 for ground testing. 13 were launched, from Kennedy Space Center, with no loss of crew, or payload. A total of 24 astronauts, were launched to the Moon, from December 1968, through December 1972. With the Apollo spacecraft on top, it stood 111 meters tall, and ignoring the fins, was 10 meters in diameter. Fully fueled, the Saturn V weighed 2,900,000 kilograms. The Saturn V was principally designed by the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, although numerous major systems, including propulsion, were designed by subcontractors. It used the powerful F-1 and J-2 rocket engines for propulsion, which shattered the windows of nearby houses when they were tested at Stennis Space Center. The Saturn V consisted of 3 stages: the S-1C, first stage, S-2, second stage, and the S-4B, third stage, and the instrument unit. All 3 stages used liquid oxygen as the oxidizer. The first stage used RP-1 for fuel, while the second and third stages used liquid hydrogen. Although liquid hydrogen has a much higher energy density to be lifted into orbit by mass, RP-1 has a much higher energy density by volume. Consequently, RP-1 was chosen for the first stage propellant, because the volume of liquid hydrogen required would have been more than 3 times greater, and would have created much higher aerodynamic drag during the boost phase through the atmosphere. The upper stages also used small, solid propellant, ullage motors, that helped to separate the stages during the staging, and to ensure that the liquid propellants were in a proper position to be drawn into the pumps. Ullage motors, also known as ullage engines or ullage rockets, are relatively small, independently fueled rocket engines that fires before the main engine ignition when the vehicle is in a zero-G situation. The resulting acceleration causes liquid in the rocket's main tanks to settle towards the engine, ensuring uninterrupted flow to the fuel and oxidizer pumps. Saturn V first stage was called S-1C. The S-1C was built by the Boeing Company at the Michoud Assembly Facility, New Orleans, where the Space Shuttle's external tanks would later be built by Lockheed Martin. Most of its mass at launch was propellant, RP-1 fuel, with liquid oxygen as the oxidizer. It was 42 meters tall and 10 meters in diameter, and provided over 34,000 kilonewtons of thrust. The S-1C stage had a dry mass of about 131,000 kilograms. When fully fueled at launch, it had a total mass of 2,300,000 kilograms. It was powered by 5 Rocketdyne F1 engines, arrayed in a quinquinox. The center engine was held in a fixed position, while the 4 outer engines could be hydraulically turned with gimbals to steer the rocket. In flight, the center engine was turned off about 26 seconds earlier than the outboard engines to limit acceleration. During launch, the SIC fired its engines for 168 seconds. Saturn V second stage, or the S2, was built by North American Aviation at Seal Beach, California. Using liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, it had 5 Rocketdyne J2 engines, in a similar arrangement to the S-1C, also using the outer engines for control. The S2 was 24.87 meters tall, with a diameter of 10 meters, identical to the S-1C, and thus was the largest cryogenic stage until the launch of the Space Shuttle in 1981. The S-2 had a dry mass of about 36,000 kilograms. When fully fueled, it weighed 480,000 kilograms. The second stage accelerated the Saturn V through the upper atmosphere with 4,900 kilonewtons of thrust in a vacuum. Saturn V third stage, or the S-4B, was built by the Douglas Aircraft Company at Huntington Beach, California. It had 1 J2 engine and used the same fuel as the S-2. The S-4B used a common bulkhead to separate the 2 tanks. It was 17.86 meters tall, with a diameter of 6.604 meters, and was also designed with high mass efficiency. The S-4B had a dry mass of about 10,000 kilograms, and fully fueled, weighed about 119,000 kilograms. The S-4B was the only rocket stage of the Saturn V which was small enough to be transported by Aero Spacelines' pregnant Guppy.